pandemic has taken a toll on all our workplaces when it struck, scattering employee experience in all the different directions. As workplaces have adjusted, it has become even more crucial for everyone to consider the employee aspect as well as the human capital, to place them at the forefront and consider all their needs as we are moving forward to the return phase. Give us more information. We have with us Manmohan S Kalsy, Chief Human Resources Officer at United Breweries Limited, to give us some in-depth knowledge on the same. Manmohan is a human resource professional with proven business partnering and organization building capabilities across FMCG, telecom, technology, and outsourcing industry at most admired workplaces. Welcome, Manmohan.
Thank you, Disha.
So now that we have established that we'll be talking about people experience and how we are supposed to put employee experience at the forefront at this time, I'd like to start by asking you, how do you think, how can companies can build an entire process map from starting to finish, to from hiring to retiring and all the processes, to give an even more enhanced workforce experience?
So, hire to retire is the complete life cycle of any candidate who becomes an employee, and then he may either superannuate, retire, or leave the organization for another uh, company or any other work that he wants to pursue. Right. So that's really how organizations for time immemorial have worked. Nothing new. Uh, in the last 20, 30 years, we have written processes and made them easier to understand. And then we started moving on to technology platforms. So some companies went to SAP, some to Oracle and other HR platforms. And the hire to retire processes have evolved into being on demand when the employee wants. What has changed in the period since March to 9 when COVID hit us is that more of these processes are now digital. More of these are on devices which employee wants to use. And from a phase which was, say, 20 years back, when we used to roll out these processes where people felt as if they were being made to work for these technology platforms. Now technology works for people, and it has become far more user friendly, accessible, faster, and therefore I think the HR teams have adapted and taken to technology in a very fast way. It has crashed many months or many years of technology adoption due to the COVID crisis. So that's the silver lining in this crisis, which has been very unfortunate for the society and for mankind.
I agree. Like we have all been shifted to the technology side at our workplaces. Initially, when COVID struck, it was more like everyone was compelled to switch to technology overnight. But now that we have gotten more accustomed to it, how do you think that what we were compelled to do, we can make it in use as our advantage to give a better employee experience?
No, it's important to really reflect on the advantages that we saw from technology shouldn't be lost moment we have the ability to go back to a normal world. Yeah. The old normal will never come back. It will come in very different way, in very different shape, and in a completely different way to different companies. And no two companies can also be compared. So it's important to see that these benefits that we've derived out of either staying in touch with our colleagues through platforms or moving our processes and moving our entire workflows onto these digital programs stay. And as they say, we look at superior returns from them, and we look at more ways to consolidate. So very clearly what it says is that what is core to our strategy, we continue to keep it with us, and what is not core to our strategy but is replicable on either size or in terms of too much of transactions can very easily move on to automated processes instead of human interventions. And therefore now we are at a phase where we've got to look beyond the conventional hire to retire into more value add things. How can we move our R&Rs there, engagement plans there, our whole L&D philosophy should be reflected. And what technology has shown is a great gift to HR fraternity is that there is a uniform understanding of the processes, and it's kind of implemented seamlessly and at the same user experience across locations. For our industry, for our company, we have a very dispersed workforce. We have 20 manufacturing locations, about 40 sales locations, and these platforms provide us the ability to give the same experience to everybody across at the same point in time. Yeah.
As you mentioned that every company is different, and the old normal might never come back. It will just come back in a very different way. But I think that as we are moving on to technology, there are some bases or some elements that every company might have to incorporate. So according to you, if you would have to tell someone or to even take those values yourself, what do you think are like the three essential elements that every company ought to have in this new normal to adjust with the employee experience better or to give a better employee experience?
Okay, I will tell you three things, but some of the points may overlap because they're not mutually exclusive, right? I think the first and foremost thing that we learned and will stay with us and we ought to remind ourselves going forward is speed. Speed is very important because you can't wait. For example, if I have a particular office in which you have 30 people and there are two cases of suspected virus, then you've got to take a decision then and there that according to the MHA guidelines and the state guidelines and the local guideline, how many days are you going to shut that office off? You don't have the luxury of coming to your workplace the next day at 10 a.m. and then calling a meeting and then taking a decision. So speed of connecting with stakeholders, aligning people for a decision is extremely important. It has always been important, but now you cannot really survive without it. So speed is extremely important. The next point I would say, which is quite related to speed, is flexibility. No model is sacrosanct. Yeah, everything can be questioned, inspected, reviewed, changed, modified, and therefore you need to have a mind which is flexible. Your structures can be flexible. Your office timings can be flexible. Your whole operating model of going to the market, route to market, how you manage supply chain can all be you know really looked into. And if you're not flexible about your ways of working, rigidity will make you very outdated. Yeah. The third part, which is very closely linked to both speed and flexibility, is I would say agility. We are in a situation where you can't work with traditional structures. And therefore, at CEO levels, CXO levels, even uh, you know, at functional head levels, departmental head levels, people need to have the agility to learn newer things, whether it is technology, whether it is ways of working, but more importantly, also have this ability to work two or three levels up or down. The hierarchical structures are, a luxury which this time doesn't provide us. And therefore, if there is a task to be done, and if other team members, regardless of their seniority or hierarchy in the organization, are occupied with something else, you have to roll your sleeves and get the work done. So, to summarize, I would say speed, flexibility, and agility would be three things which are of a great essence going forward.
Those were like some very great insights, and people watching this might have some very good takeaways, because I very strongly agree with the agility thing, because people should have the motivation to learn and to do new things, and not have that to, that I won't step down and do some other person's work. So that was amazing. Thank you so much. That's it from my side. Thank you for such a lovely interaction. It was good to have you today.
Thanks, it's been a pleasure.